The first post-game podcast of the 2021-22 Phoenix Suns season, the good, the bad, and the ugly, everything that went down at Footprint Center tonight, coming up next on Locked On Suns.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
We are back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, credentialed media member covering the Suns the past 5 seasons and joining you here every single morning. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single morning. And follow the show on Twitter if you do not already, at Locked On PHX Suns. Follow me on Twitter, of course, as well, at Brendon Kleen 14. It's game day. We are back in the routine. You can expect a recap of each and every Suns home game, either in full form during the week or, of course, in smaller form when the weekend catches up to us. But we're back. We are back doing this and hanging out every single game. Today's show, before we dive into all of it, from a 110-98 loss, surprising, puzzling, lots to chew on here by the Phoenix Suns at the hands of the Denver Nuggets. But again, this show is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's an unofficial community center. So a big thank you to our friends at McDonald's for always being there for us. I'm loving it. Again, 110-98 loss to the Denver Nuggets by the Phoenix Suns. 40 points in the second half total. Very, very lackluster performance by Phoenix in that second half. You had turnovers, 18 of them by the Phoenix Suns. You had three of 15 shooting by Devin Booker in his 30 minutes, which is also noteworthy, those 30 minutes. But we'll do the same thing we did last season. For those of you who are new, welcome. Again, thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single day to get game recaps, news, analysis, guest interviews, all of that good stuff. But for those of you who were joining me throughout the regular season last year and into the early part of the playoffs before things went off the rails and we were just reacting and rolling with the punches, the general way that I like to do these recaps is to start with my big takeaway from the game, get into the positives of the contest, what were the highlights, what did go well, which is a lot easier said than done now than it used to be back when I first started doing this podcast, and it was very difficult to find the positives, but that's a lot easier now. And then we'll close with some of our usual segments, although today I do want to give you guys a little bit of taste of what it was like being at the arena, because that's always fun as well. We're going to have to come up with some new recurring recap segments, though, guys. We had the Chris Paul, I can't even remember the guys that it was the all-star team of players that he completely broke. We had the Bridges breakout watch. We had how many free throws did Deandre Ayton take? We had a lot of them, but I think we're going to have to mix it up because some of those things are really not relevant anymore. Mikal Bridges has done broken out. We don't need to watch that anymore. And I think I'm kind of past the Deandre Ayton free throw thing. So I'll come up with a few more between now and then, but that's the general blueprint for these shows, folks, and it should be fun. They're a little quicker, but again, thank you for coming here every time there is a game to get my thoughts, to get potentially some guest thoughts and all of that every single day. The big takeaway from this one is it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment this season. And I'm not even saying that because, again, it really was a tale of two halves. So I don't want to take a narrative out of what happened in the second half and try to say this is how everything's going to be, right? If you had asked me, hey, what's your big takeaway from the game halfway through the second quarter when the Suns were blowing the doors off the Nuggets and it was a double-digit going on 20-point lead, I probably would have said, wow, we're right back to it, hitting the ground running, and finals, here we come. That's, of course, you can get prisoner of the moment syndrome when you're doing that. So I don't want to state the second half as sort of the thing, but again, 18 turnovers. They were 41% from the field. They allowed Denver to make 17 of 39 from deep, 44%. Honestly, if the Suns didn't have the 11 offensive rebounds that they were able to grab, and if they didn't have some hot shooting moments from Cam Johnson and Landry Shannon in particular, this thing would look even uglier. So it's going to be a little bit, and I think that is counterintuitive. I had a listener when I tweeted my my quick recap video from the arena earlier in the night. I had a listener who responded saying, well, so much for continuity. And I wouldn't say toss out continuity and it's going to be a long haul again, and we're going to have this sort of stumbling out of the gates 9-9, 500, will they, won't they, be good type of thing like we had last year. But I think rather than saying there goes continuity, what I think is reasonable is actually to look at how things are pretty different. And so you had moments in this game, especially Monty was playing all bench lineups, which he didn't do a lot last year, which happened in part because Devin Booker did not play his usual rotation, which I'll get to as well here as part of why things might look a little different early on. But with those all bench units, and even without them, different guys were bringing the ball up the floor. We're initiating offense. We're being, given the chance to make a play, whether that was Shamet, Payne, Johnson, Nader, Bridges, Ayton, all these different guys who were mixing it up and getting an opportunity to have the ball in their hands and do something with it. We want, as people who are, hoping this team can get to the promised land, we want to see, of course, them try things, to experiment, right? So that is going to be part of the growing pains. If we want to see a season where Shamet and Payne get a little bit more run and a little bit more opportunity off the bench, well, then that's going to lead to some hiccups. When the game early on was the same routine as we were used to seeing all last year and into the postseason, into the finals, Chris Paul, high pick and roll with Deandre Ayton. Ayton scored, I think, 11 points in the first half, 11 points. I would say he got his 11th early in the second, really started the game strong. Chris Paul had 10 assists in this game. That was working, right? So they score only 20 in the first quarter, but then Paul starts the second quarter with a kind of hybrid unit with the bench and the bigs in together. He's able to start getting the offense going. That's when they take their big lead. But then after that, when it was some of these other guys getting those chances, things started to look a little wrong. So you had 10 turnovers from the starting lineup alone. You had 3 from Cameron Payne. This is a team that's still figuring some things out. The other thing is Devin Booker, 30 minutes today. Like I said, did not play his usual rotation of being in there for the entire first quarter. So that was a big departure from last season. You could say it was either the legs and the conditioning just by way of the Olympics, the short break, and then having COVID. Of course, we know conditioning is one of the last things to come back for players. Oftentimes, Jason Tatum talked about that a lot. It's not the same for everybody. I'm not trying to say I'm in Devin Booker's lungs and I can see what's going on in there, but I wouldn't be a surprise. On the other hand, I asked him about it post-game in the arena, which is another thing, like I said, I do want to share with you guys. And he said, it's something that they hope to take advantage of. They have the depth this year. They have multiple players that they trust. I mean, look, Kaminsky, Payton, these are veteran players who could easily get out there and do something. They're not even sniffing the rotation right now. So Booker playing 30 minutes. Now, is that going to happen every night? Probably not, but you could see some lower minute totals for some of these guys because of that. And as a result, if you're not playing your veterans, if you're not playing the guys that you did run it back with, Jay Crowder only played 24 minutes. Another example, the other 3 starters were up there, mid-30s, but that's going to be a trickle down of more chances for these younger, newer pieces to, have some miscues. And I'm not saying the bench was the problem, because in reality, actually, the starters from a plus-minus perspective were more of the issue. But what I'm saying overall is some of these new rotations, new faces, new opportunities, new skill development, that's all going to come at the cost of some of this chemistry. So as much as we saw the continuity and the running it back and great, all that, I think they'll be much stronger out of the gates, but I do think it might just be a little while. All right, let's get to more positives from this game, starting with Cam Johnson. Coming up right after a quick break, but first, a word from McDonald's. This episode of Locked On Suns is brought to you by McDonald's, proudly serving communities since 1965. McDonald's has always been more than just a place to get tasty, affordable food. It's a place where friends and family can come to reconnect, a place where classmates can meet up for a study group knowing they'll have dependable Wi-Fi and endless supplies of French fries and McFlurries. Win or lose, it's a place where teammates, competitors, and the home and the away team can come to recharge. It's the place you always look forward to stopping at on a long road trip to rest your legs and refuel. Look, I was just at McDonald's when I was on my way out to San Diego for a bachelor party. It was a way to break the ice, get everybody on the trip acclimated and comfortable. And look, refuel as well. The food definitely hits the spot after a long car ride, after not enough food throughout the day. And it was delicious. So head to your local McDonald's to refuel and reconnect just like me. Did someone say Locked On Suns watch party? We'll get some computers over there, watch a Suns game, have a Big Mac, have a Coke, and enjoy. I'm loving it. All right. Today's show also brought to you by Calm. Do you want to know what makes LeBron James King James? Well, it's sleep. That's right. Sleep is the King's superpower. Calm, the #1 app for sleep and meditation, has teamed up with LeBron James to help you activate the power of sleep. When it comes to athletes, we tend to focus on physical fitness, but there's another side of the game that's just as important: mental fitness. Calm, the #1 app for sleep and meditation, has teamed up with LeBron James, again, to help you train your mind. LeBron and Calm know that your mind is like any other muscle in your body, but you don't have to be a world champion to learn how to train it. Calm can help you train your brain so you sleep better, reduce stress, and perform at your best, just like the King. As LeBron says, getting good sleep and finding time to rest is one of the most valuable things I can do for my body and mind. From the sound of rain falling on leaves to bedtime sleep stories, Calm puts me to sleep, within quotes, which means I wake up ready for any challenge. So if you head to calm.com/lockedonnba, for a limited time, you'll get 40% off a Calm premium subscription. Again, for a limited time, our listeners can join LeBron in using Calm and get a 40% discount on a premium subscription at calm.com/lockedonnba. That's all one word, lockedonnba. Unlock content to help you focus, ease stress, and sleep better. Get started at calm.com/lockedonnba. That's calm.com/lockedonnba. The positives of the Suns' 110-98 loss on opening night to the Denver Nuggets. Nationally televised, Mark Jones, Richard Jefferson, a very physically imposing man. Let me just tell you, he was down in the media room. He's got his signature shiny bald head. He has got his 6'8" frame. And I was like, man, that is a tall human being. Maybe it's just myself not being around the media room and that space and the players and everything all of last season and getting a little disoriented from it. But very big profile. And there are some things to be optimistic about anyway, aside from me getting to see Richard Jefferson and marveling at his frame. There are some positives here. As I said, Cameron Johnson is the first one. And I actually feel like I'll save part of the Cam Johnson spiel here for later on, because I think he might replace Mikal Bridges for the breakout watch here. So I will just identify a few things though about him that really stood out to me. Is one, I interviewed Cam Johnson going into last season. Again, for those of you who remember that. And one of the things that I was really struck by that he said that he wanted to focus on is confidence, which sounds weird because we never would think of Cam Johnson as a timid player. But it's one thing to just take the shots when they're open and kind of, do your job. But it's another thing to have the confidence to really embrace the green light that the coaching staff is giving him, that his teammates trust him to have. And so that's what's really jumping out to me. It happened all throughout last postseason. Really last year, whenever he was actually healthy, it was happening. And to see him healthy from game one, and hopefully that can continue, and having proven himself in the playoffs, the green light that he is taking full advantage of. Half of his shots were from deep tonight. He was attacking the basket. We know he can be a pretty good rebounder, especially on the offensive glass, coming out of nowhere with his size when he is engaged and focused on the boards. And so that all continued. Very, very good stuff. And most notably with Cam Johnson, tied Jay Crowder in the minutes column tonight, something that I made a whole episode about with Damon Allred in our 13 questions preview series this fall. Was, will Cam Johnson overtake Jay Crowder as a closer or maybe as a starter? And just like in a lot of postseason games last year, those guys were equal, 24 minutes apiece tonight. So that's a good thing. That means the coaching staff has trust in him. It means it's another option that the Suns will feel comfortable going to potentially close games. And it just means a young player is developing. That's always good as well. Another positive here, and probably the one I maybe should have started with because it is such a key storyline all year, is the two young pillars next to Devin Booker stepping up and doing a little bit more with the ball. Mikal Bridges, 16 shot attempts, leading the team, getting to the basket a little bit more. I think he had at least 3 or 4 attacking plays where he got to the basket. Yes, I think he got blocked once by Aaron Gordon. Oh no, that one block for the Nuggets, that was definitely the Gordon block. That was a goaltend on Devin Booker. So I guess Bridges did not get blocked, but he missed a few layups. He did get to the line once and then missed his free throws. So look, again, as I said to start the show, it's not going to necessarily be, the Suns just skyrocket immediately because, as I was saying, allowing and empowering Mikal Bridges to try these types of things, attack the basket, get to his mid-range, take the ball down the floor in transition, all these new wrinkles that we want to see out of him, that's going to not always be pretty. So he was 7 of 16. He only made 7 of those 16 shots, but I think that's fine. Those growing pains are going to be well worth it when the playoffs come and these guys have the confidence. Speaking of that confidence, Deandre Ayton, again, like I said, started this game hot, scored, I believe, 8 or 9 points in the first quarter. I think it was 8 of the Suns' first 10 points came from Ayton, and it was in a variety of ways. He had a running jumper out of the post when he was kind of, trying to box and jar and push at Jokic and wasn't getting anywhere. Then he was able to kind of use his agility to get away from Jokic and make a fadeaway jumper. He had another jumper in rhythm. And then on a few possessions later, he had a putback dunk. He had a cut dunk and got to the line later on in the game. He also took 3 3-pointers, which I think was the most he's ever taken in one game. I think the previous high was 2. And look, they were all sorts of different ways. One was catch and shoot. One was on a, dribble handoff that he didn't, kind of faked it and then had space at the top of the key. Another one was he, again, was trying to reverse the ball. The defense played off of him. He was on the left wing in the second half and took that one. So these are new things. These are good things to see out of this young Suns core and, trying stuff, getting the room and the space to, take risks and whatever. And look, it's not to say that anybody was content with the loss. I'm not trying to make an excuse. I'm not trying to say that this was, the plan. Oh, let's, lose and not even crack 100 points and all in the name of development. I don't think that's what's happening here, but I just think we have to be realistic and take the good with the bad. The bad is the loss. The bad is the squelched lead, but the good is that these guys were able to be put into position where they tried some stuff. Some of it looked really good and some of it looked really promising, and that can continue throughout the rest of the season. So that'll close out the positives. I do really believe those are positives. You might be looking at them as a negative, but I think it's good. I think it's going to be a key part of this season if they can continue to empower the young players to try stuff and get better at it in time for the postseason. Let's close out the show with 2 new segments that I've come up with, at least for now. We'll see how we fare throughout. I'll ditch them in a hurry if I don't believe in it anymore, and I'll come up with a new one in the drop of a hat if it strikes me. So by no means am I beholden, but that will be where we start tonight, and I'll give you a little bit of stuff from the arena as well. First, though, quick word from SweatBlock. For a few weeks now, we've been talking about SweatBlock here at the Locked On Network. These wipes that have replaced the traditional deodorant, and they stop sweat in its tracks for 7 days. It seems people have been listening. We have tons of friends across our Locked On audience who've tried SweatBlock and love it. straight out of Hollywood. We have a producer who was working on the set of a Marvel movie. Maybe you've heard of those. She was working 18-hour days for weeks in the Atlanta Heat. She heard about SweatBlock, started trying it, and loves it. No more sweaty production days. She even reports that one of the A-list actors uses it now to stay dry on set and on the red carpet. You've also heard about the soccer player who heard us talking about SweatBlock, thought it was too good to be true, who was always one of the wettest guys at practice, tried SweatBlock, tried it on his pits, and the next practice, everything was dry. Guess he should probably try it on his other parts too, and his teammates were jealous. He didn't have to reapply for 9 days. He's become a true believer. There you go. SweatBlock working for our customers. Locked On listeners are loving it. And you have that dry shirt guarantee on top of it all. If SweatBlock doesn't keep you dry, you get your money back. So if you, or maybe a Hollywood producer or a soccer player in your life, is dealing with that excessive sweat, check out SweatBlock. Go to sweatblock.com today. Use the promo code LOCKEDON when you make your purchase to get 20% off your next order. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDON for 20% off at sweatblock.com, or check them out at Amazon and CVS. Closing out the show, thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen every single morning, whether that's after a game or on any other weekday. I will be right here giving you the latest on the Suns. Again, follow the show on Locked On PHX Suns if you haven't. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't. That is the best ways to find everything we are doing here. The breakout segment, like I hinted, Mikal Bridges, we used to do Bridges breakout watch. It doesn't ring quite as well for Cam Johnson. However, we'll do it anyway. Cam breakout watch, Cam Johnson. I'll take it. I'll take anything you guys give me. We're still workshopping it at Locked On PHX Suns. Send me what the name of this breakout watch should be for Cam Johnson. Something that rolls off the tongue a little bit better. I said a lot of things about Cam Johnson in that last segment, but I do feel like his versatility, his flexibility is going to be a key this season. I think that he's a player who, if you're talking about going small, which was something that the Nuggets bench at certain times was able to punish the Suns with, Jeff Green in particular, they were popping him out behind the arc. That's something Monty Williams pointed to. And if the Suns are able to make a trade or figure something out, Dario Saric comes back at some point and they are able to play small, I think Cam's going to be a big part of that. I think he developed a lot from the postseason run last season, whether that was the Lakers matchup or the Clippers matchup and the Bucks, frankly, in terms of how he can be effective. And I think the glass is somewhere where his size can make an impact in those spaces. I think being bigger than the guy guarding him in the perimeter can actually be useful because he can get that shot up over guys. So I think we'll just continue to see him implement the lessons that he learned and continue to grow. And those minutes totals, I think, are going to be pretty even a lot of the year between him and Jay. The other recap segment that I'm creating today without a moment's notice for any of you. It's a new one out of the thin air. Bench mob vibe check. I think that's what it came out of my brain out on the car ride home. I kind of like it. I think I'm going to stick with it. You can still send me your suggestions. I can't promise I'll take them because I really do like it. And it's going to be one we talk about all season. I know it already. Bench mob vibe check. Again, Monty Williams playing whole 5-man bench units that we rarely saw because, again, Devin Booker would play the whole first quarter, the beginning of the game. Chris Paul would come in at the beginning of the second quarter, and then Booker would play the remainder of the second quarter after Chris Paul left the floor for a few moments. And that staggering, if you want to call it that, meant that at least one of those guys was always going to be on the court. You had at least one of the forwards between Crowder and Bridges was always on the court for the most part. And this wasn't the case tonight. I'm not saying it will never be the case. I'm not saying this is permanent rotation, but I think that this bench group is going to be very important to the Suns, adding more versatility, developing their young players. And so you had Abdul Nader, who I don't think should be given quite as many opportunities to handle the ball as he had in this game, if I'm being completely honest. So not a great night from him. Didn't make a shot. Defensive impact was limited. I do like how he can fight over screens. That was something I noticed from him. The Nuggets run a lot of off-ball stuff. Obviously when Jamal Murray is back, he's a key part of that. And so somebody like Nader who can fight through those screens, that's good stuff. But other than that, not great. Cam, I talked about Javel Mcgee. He is an awkward body, man, of just like flailing limbs, and he's just, jumping from place to place. He had a block tonight that was fun, but had, 3 turnovers, and he just ends up in the most bizarre situations. He had to hoist a random floater at one point. There was one situation where there was a loose ball and he ended up with it, and he just took off down the court in transition rather than trying to find one of his guards. He is confident. He is long and lanky and awkward. He is fun, but also chaotic. I don't know what I make of JaVale McGee experience quite yet, but it is obviously nice to have that backup. 15 minutes for him, 33 for Ayton. Last but not least, my beloved Landry Shannon. I don't have much on campaign. He had a little bit of an odd game. Not able to really get in rhythm. Didn't take as many threes as we're used to when he's really rolling. I'm not worried. He had some nice finishes at the basket, was able to get to the line quite a bit. So not a bad game, but look, he played a campaign type of game. I was a little confused some of the time with the defensive matchups where he was not defending opposing point guards, even when it seemed like it made sense. So have to continue to watch that. But Landry Shannon is who we're going to close with. This guy, I'm not going to do a whole bunch of Landry Shannon stuff. You've heard me bark about him for plenty of time now. What I will just say is 4 of 5 from the field, 3 of 3 from deep. This guy, if this can continue, and we've heard the stuff out of practice where on a team with Cam Johnson and Devin Booker on it, as well as Mikal Bridges, who last regular season was the best shooter on the team, where Shamit is winning some of these shooting competitions in practice. So we already knew that. But you watch this guy on the 3 threes that he took. He made all of them, like I just said. I'm not sure he touched the net on one of them. I think they hit the back of the rim perfectly with some backspin and some perfect arc, and they just drooped through the net like it was absolutely nothing. If that's legit and he's able to get that comfort that he hasn't been able to get with a real role on this team that he didn't have with the Clippers or the Nets, and that shooting is able to really shine because of the open looks he's going to get, because of the way that this system creates open threes, he might be the best shooter on the team, and he might be one of the best shooters in the NBA. I've been using that Seth Curry comparison all offseason long. I still believe in it. I think that that's the type of ceiling we're talking about with Landry, and I'm just really ready to continue to see it. No assists and no turnovers. Just he didn't really have the ball in his hands in the same way that he did in preseason. Maybe that's a lot because Booker is back on the floor and Payne is aggressive, and talked about how Chris Paul early on in the game was really controlling a lot for the Suns. So that's something I'm going to continue to watch. I do think there's some potential there, like I've been saying. So I hope he gets some chances with the ball in his hands. But even if he becomes a smart ball mover who really is just a lights out shooter, and hopefully you pray he can just survive on defense, that is an incredible role player to have. Somebody they obviously value based on the fact that they just locked him up. And tonight was a great debut. So bench mob vibe check and the Cam Johnson breakout watch. Give me your best ideas for the title of that segment, and I'll come up with more in the meantime. Only game recap show this week, guys. So I'll be back one final time on Friday with a little bit of an in-between, get you through the week type of episode, previewing the Lakers game, another nationally televised contest on Friday night. And so I'll have some thoughts on what that matchup could be. But until then, enjoy Wednesday night if you're hearing it on the premiere on YouTube, or, of course, your Thursday if not, and I will talk to you tomorrow.